The support worker's tale, as told to Josh Cohen. Try the Danish, go on. We're not Mother Teresa or anything. We laugh a lot. Footballer haircuts, word of mouth tutors, high end kitchen appliances, all that. Not so much piety, penance, prophetic rage, moral superiority. Uh, the apricot one's better. So, this young guy, 27 years old and handsome, tells me he'll never get a girlfriend. I say, you? Because, he is handsome. But why not? Why not? Where would we go? I can't even buy her a coffee. All the pain and humiliation, the money you don't have for a coffee you can't buy, in a place you can't go with a girlfriend you won't meet. We're all volunteers. Teachers, students, social workers, office managers, physiotherapists, software engineers, doctors, yoga teachers. So, when we talk about destitute asylum seekers, what does that really mean? Well, the obvious to start with: money, food, shelter. But it goes beyond material deprivation, down to the deprivation of the whole self. It means being in but not of the world. Like a shade from the world below, you're condemned to float around outside, looking in on everything you can't have, everyone that you're not. If no one buys you a pint of milk, or nods good morning, or smiles, or banters, or flirts, asks you directions, or if you want to come for a drink, who are you? If in the daytime you wander the streets with no place to go, and at night you tiptoe across the floor of some dank one-bedroom apartment and spread yourself across a battered sofa, pretending not to hear the hissed altercations of your friend or friend's friend and his wife about you being there, try to imagine it. You'd wonder if you existed at all, while feeling you exist too much. Like there's no space to accommodate the burden of you. We open our doors for 3 hours, first Sunday of the month. But as their numbers have swelled, so have ours. Close to 400 of them, maybe 100 of us. We reimburse travel, yeah. Well, somehow they get here a few hundred miles away, however they can. Last time it took 5 buses for one man. And once he got here, he waited an hour for the doors to open in the blazing heat. Then he helped hand out drinks. They get home-cooked food, shopping vouchers, clothing, medical attention, legal advice, counseling. And they get us. And each other. We welcome them, yes, but I always feel they welcome us too. It's hard to explain. Some people arrive morose and, well, leave morose. It's a mire of desolation. And yet, such an uplifting place to be. You look around the room brimming with people with all shades of color and feeling and expression and age, and you just think, stories. Occasionally, a client gets leave to remain, and then he'll come back as one of us. That's amazing. It closes the gap, lets us feel our basic sameness. Actually, just being here does that. You look over at a loose group of people in the middle of the room, sipping coffee, chatting. The older white people could be fleeing blood feuds from Albania or ethnic conflicts in Georgia. The younger black people could be volunteers from Croydon or Southgate. We have an ex-client. He's a doctor, 90 years old. We welcome them. They welcome us. Sunday leaguers, choristers, Minecrafters, bloggers, watercolorists, kitchen gardeners. It's hard not to be in awe sometimes. This one bloke has been coming for 10 years, and every time I call to him, "Hey, how are things?" "Still alive," he says, waving and smiling every time. "Still alive." The resilience, the sheer tenacity of their hold on their humanity. You can't help thinking you'd have lost it long before. not knowing if tomorrow brings redemption, damnation, or just the familiar grind of boredom and fear, which is itself damnation, I tend to think. You don't want to get sentimental. You get these bruisers come along, you put out strawberries for the kids, and they swoop down like bloody gannets, and before you can say, hey, they've gone, them and the strawberries both. Well, that's humanity too. You have to remind yourself the most fundamental human right of all is probably the right to be as much of an arse as anyone else. Let's not peddle the cliche that suffering makes you good, or bad for that matter. A depressed baby. Does it sound ridiculous that I didn't even realize there could be such a thing? Goodness knows I'm no longer young, but I've been working with refugees since I was. Decades. In all that time, I've not known a service like this one. Living so many years outside the moneyed economy has the most bizarre consequences. This man, Gabriel, I'd known for years. I'd been helping him with his application, his evidence, trying to get him a little money. I came to find him where he was living, if you can call it living, in Northampton, to bring him down here, have him stay at my home for a while. His hostel turfed him out all day, so he spent his waking hours walking the streets, aimless and penniless. Well, he insisted on taking me around all the places and people who'd shown him some kindness. The mental health center, the local pharmacy, the William Hill. Yes, he said to me, we had to go to the William Hill. And, well, you can't really help wondering why on earth a penniless asylum seeker feels he urgently needs to go into William Hill. The answer was Marge. He had to see Marge, to thank her for all she'd done for him. What did she do for you? I asked him. As he started to tell me, his eyes welled up. If there is not many people, Marge lets us come in where it's warm, maybe watch the racing. Sometimes you have to use the toilet as she unlocks a special toilet for us. Think what that means if you have no regular access to a toilet. So in we go. He asks for Marge, and out she comes. And he hands her this rather grotty bunch of flowers we bought for her and starts to tell her all she's done for him. Only he can't, because by now the tears are flowing too thick and too fast. So there we are. This great big man, his arms suspended in midair, his tongue frozen in his open mouth, and this little Marge, well, now Marge loses it, stares at these dowdy cellophane-wrapped chrysanthemums and then at him and says, "You're leaving us?" And then she's off too, weeping uncontrollably. And then, of course, it's my turn. The floodgates open. There we are, the three of us, sobbing in chorus, while behind us a little band of irritable men with 3-day beards stare at the ground and tap their feet, waiting to put their tenner on the 3:30 at Aintree. Catholics, Sikhs, COV, Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, Jews, Humanists, Methodists, New Agers. The look on a little girl's face when you show her 6 pairs of gloves and invite her to choose the one she likes best. When I saw that face, I thought, no, that's not a look of gratitude. It's a look of welcome. You see? It's a synagogue project, yes. I was telling someone about it once. So what, are they all Jews? He asked me. So I said, yes, the majority of volunteers are Jewish. But he meant the refugees. The refugees from Sri Lanka, Congo, Eritrea, Iran, Bangladesh, Egypt. Seriously, are they all Jews? You have to laugh. One guy who comes in here had spent 3 years in detention, then they released him. They can release you as abruptly and arbitrarily as they arrest you. You imagine, if your life has been so malnourished, so bereft of everything that would make it a life, You'd grab the chances that come to you with both hands and both feet. Doesn't always work like that. Once he got bail, he had no clue what to do outside detention. Freedom was a kind of agoraphobic nightmare. The world spread around him like an unnavigable desert. He struggled with addiction. And then it's a few steps to crime. And then, well, yes, the founding group are Jewish. The camps, Kindertransport, DP, just words, but more than words. The ghosts of our early lives. We went to school, we ate well, our parents worked hard and made sure we did too. And then round the table, amid all the daily laughter and madness, you felt the presence of the dead. Faces suddenly turned inward and sad. You felt it. Sometimes I look at a man or woman here chatting or smiling, and there's a pause, and I see the same gesture. The same gentle downward turn of the neck, eyes, mouth. The gaze fixed below as though that's where the truth is. It's amazing the way the four corners of the earth can fold in on themselves in here. We had a professor client once from Rwanda. He comes in for a new client interview, and as he sits down, there's this little gasp from the man interviewing him, a lawyer. The professor, he tells me, mouth and eyes agape, was his teacher in Kigali. So he agrees there and then to represent him pro bono. If they want to talk about their stories, they will. You make yourself available to it. But it's probably better not to ask. You get the feeling they've come to forget about their stories and just be ordinary. The kids especially. You do something like firing elastic bands in the air, something as ordinary as that, and they're in ecstasies. They've never seen that before, and they make you do it again and again and again. A young man I'd worked with got leave to remain. I hadn't heard from him in 3 or 4 years, so when he phoned, there was, I confess, a long pause before I could place him. He was going to college, he told me. Could he name me as his next of kin? Me? Who hadn't remembered who he was? I'll tell you something about destitution. And then you can be destitute in knowledge. A young woman, barely 18, arrives here pregnant and alone. Back home, she'd have slotted into a family support network. Abandoned to herself, she's nothing to fall back on. Not the barest bones of know-how. She has an emergency C-section and she's left with this baby and questions. Why the bleeding? How do you care for this wound? How do you hold a baby? How do you hold a baby? Occasional fights break out in the kids' section. No one's taught them what sharing is, and in any case, they've not really had anything to share. And then magically they do. And then you tell them they have to give it back. Quiet, young, funny, cantankerous, odd, kind, shy, overbearing, morose, elderly, intellectual, sporty, needy, daft, generous. Maybe the worst of all is the sheer brittleness of any life they can cobble together. I've known people get the right to work, an NI number, some exhausting, low-paid, low-status work no one else wants to do. And gradually they put up some kind of scaffolding of a life. Then, all of a sudden, and for no real reason, the Home Office writes and says, they found your file, you've no right to work, go home, you don't have a well-founded fear of persecution. Fill in the wrong form, make the wrong payment. Some bureaucratic error, a technicality that suddenly becomes a crime. And the life you thought you had pops like a bubble. The things you hear in churches, advice centers, doctors' offices, benefit offices, Give me a lethal injection, please. I no longer want to live. Someone tried to kill me with a knife when I was sleeping beside the shop entrance. That is just what I deserve. The kids who volunteer don't generally want to at first. Well, yeah, obviously. Afternoon with the wretched of the earth, a real hot ticket. They want to imagine their brand consciousness and gadgetry and expensive haircut is just part of the air they breathe, not the marks of their privilege. So I got my kids to play with the kids here. But they have a great home and their own rooms and ridiculous amounts of stuff and good schooling and friends and leisure and hobbies and security and permanence and love, all abundant, all unquestioned. But as long as they're playing, any difference between my kids and any other kids can stop mattering. We can't give them all the things they need to live, but we can give them the feeling of being alive. For the few hours they're here, but for longer too, because it's something they can keep hold of till they return. So they come from all over, by foot, by bus, the backseat of a car, of a friend, they come. Weary, hopeful, sad, smiling, pissed off, ravenous, cold, hot, they come. The fleshly beings they can now be assume the singularity of this life, this body, flabby, old, thin, muscled, weedy, whatever body, queuing as separate bodies, hanging loosely together, not dissolved into some snaking queue of postured hate. They come to eat inside, outside, to know themselves as storied, seen, heard, felt, laughing with, laughed at, a presence in the world, a foot you can step on, a trunk you can bump into and have to say sorry, laugh it off, no problem, to choose shoes you like because brown, red, because soul lights flash, look, flash, soul lights. They come to eat as more than clamoring belly, to eat dal, lasagna, strawberries, sticky sweet pastries or not, because you don't like them. They come to be recognized in law as minds, as conduits for flow of blood, desire, feelings, good, bad, to talk, listen, talk to, be silent, to feel the bare fact of another's presence, of others' presence, of own presence, of being there, taking up a rightful corner of the world. They come to see their children play, laugh, stop, be more than their needs. Your guilt, they come and we open doors and they open doors and we welcome them and they welcome us and feel the solidarity of the flow of blood, desire, feelings, good, bad, to feel not love, but something simpler, the being together of neighbors in a room in the world, welcome and welcoming, because this is the human race, and there's only one, whatever. They come not to be loved, but to be, as we come not to be loved, but to be, to welcome them as they welcome us. Because there is no them, no us. There are worse ways to spend a Sunday afternoon. Oh, I'd avoid the raisin ones if I were you.